is now 6:30. Good evening, everyone. And I would like to, my name is Joan Fishman, President of the Wilmette Public Library Board, and I'd like to call this meeting on Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Call the meeting to order, please. Secretary DiLorenzo, may we please have a roll call?
Yes. Trustee Cox? Here. Trustee DiLorenzo is here. Trustee Fishman?
Here.
Trustee Nealon?
Here.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Here.
Trustee Senate?
Here.
Trustee Summer?
Here.
Very good, thank you. May we now have the review of the draft minutes from February 18th, 2025, our regular board meeting. And are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Nope.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, may I have a motion now to approve the February 18th, 2025 regular board meeting minutes as presented? Motion, please.
I'll do it. I move approval of the February 18th, 2025 regular board meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. The motion has been presented by Trustee Summer and seconded by Trustee Senate. Excuse me. Thank you. Secretary DiLorenzo, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo? Yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
I abstain. I was not present.
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes, thank you. The minutes for February 18th, 2025 regular board meeting as presented has passed. Thank you. This now is the time for any public comment. Meeting attendees who have signed the public visitor comment registration form and who wish to address the Wilmette Public Library Board of Trustees may do so here. Our microphone is not working, but if anyone would like to present, we will hand a microphone to them. All right. Thank you. Then seeing none, we will. No, not at all. Please, if you stand at the microphone, please. At the, let's, someone here. Please state your name and your residency.
Sure.
Wherever you.
Good evening. I'm Bob Lepkowski. I live on 16th Street. I've been here since 1996. My first time to your board meeting. Thank you very much for having us. I'm here primarily because I wanted to throw my support behind all of your work in keeping the staff well occupied in their job of deciding what the library should be. So whatever, and that it should be the staff and the curators who decide what's available to the citizens of Wilmette and let them make their decisions about what they would like to read. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comment. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Are there any presentations this evening? None? All right, we'll move on to our treasurer's report. Treasurer Summer, please.
Good evening, everybody. In looking at the financial reports, the first one to clarify that in the documents, the first income statement included in the packet is for the general fund only, and the second one represents the income statement for all funds. Usually it's labeled. This month it just was an oversight. As noted in the first paragraph of the financial report, the library has begun receiving some property tax revenue, $964,639 in general and fund taxes, and $1,068,383 in all funds in total in February. There were 4 CDs that matured and were reinvested in the general fund and special reserve fund in total, and the current interest rates for the CDs range from 3.7 to 5.3%, with due dates from 5/29/25 to 2/12/29. It's a nice, very nice bond ladder. As I noted in my report last month, the overall net loss of $620,330 as of the end of January has been offset by the receipt of property tax revenue and interest income. Please note that as of the end of February, the general fund reflects net income of $148,832, with overall net income for all funds of $58,593. And looking at the incomes, again, it's reasonable we didn't receive any replacement taxes in February, as it's not a month we normally receive these funds. For the rest of the year, we should receive them in March, April, and May. As noted in the notes also, there are several line items that are higher than the 8-month rate of 66.66%. For example, electronic resources was about 72.3%. And, I just reviewed this with Director Austin, and as we know, some of our contracts have one-time expenses that generally fall in the first quarter, won't be billed again until next year, while some have regular monthly expenses. The staff continue to monitor these and will remain close to at or slightly above budget. And there were no special reserve fund expenses in February. Does anyone have any questions or comments or thoughts on any of this fascinating information?
Thank you very much. And are there any comments about the bills and salaries? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Treasurer Summers?
Is there a motion for approval of the bills and salaries check detail?
I move approval of the bills and salaries check detail for February 2025 as presented.
And is there a second, please?
I second.
Thank you. Trustee DiLorenzo has moved the approval of bills and salaries check detail for February 2025, and Trustee Cox has seconded the motion. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Trustee Cox? Yes. Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes.
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passed to approve the bills and salaries check detail for February 2025 as presented. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our action items, and it is review and approval of renewals and updates to the following policies. And I'm going to turn this over to Director Austin.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. In your packet and via email, you've received some information about the library's plans to update policy. As you may recall, we have a policy about policy, and that suggests that no less than every 2 years, staff will review all of our policies for currency and accuracy, and that we will also present those to you all for reapproval when appropriate. And that's what we're asking for this evening. The policies that are in the packet do not really have any substantial changes to them. In fact, there are no changes to policies 5, 6, 7. We have 2 small additions that we're adding to the policy as part of this evening's packet. The major work of the policy committee, however, is before us this spring, and management is still in the process of evaluating the policies that we're going to be bringing before you. We will have some new policies for review, and we'll have ample time for discussion in committee before we bring those for review before the full board. But tonight, what we're really looking to do is to get a fresh date of renewal on the policies that are in the packet for you, as well as these 2 small policies relating to the public comments and meeting minutes, as well as a policy about the flagpole. Are there any questions about the policies in the packet? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
That was easy, then. Thank you, as you aptly stated. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the approval of the renewals and updates to the library policies and associated appendices as presented?
I move approval of the renewals and updates to library policies and associated appendices as presented.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion with Trustee Senate, thank you, and a second by Trustee Nealon. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes.
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes. Thank you very much. Motion passed. The approval of the renewals and updates to library policies and associated appendices as presented. Thank you, everyone. Now we move on to our other action item, contract proposal, the Midwest Environmental Consulting Services for Asbestos Abatement Project. Director Austin, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the packet I have a cover sheet with a recommendation and overview of the proposal that is in the packet from Midwest Environmental Consulting Services regarding our proposed asbestos abatement project. As you all know, we have a mid-century building here, and we've seen multiple additions and renovations over the years. And in the process of going through those multiple renovations, there was a point in the mid-century and of the 20th century where we were putting in, to our knowledge and also not to our knowledge, some products that contained asbestos. It was a fairly common material to contain the spread of fire, which is an important aspect to include in libraries, but it was later learned that that is a material that should not be installed in any of our facilities. In multiple renovations in the late 20th century, we became aware of this and we started to abate them. And we conducted a comprehensive interior study in 2015-16, concurrent with the last renovation project that we did on the second floor, where we analyzed all of the asbestos-containing materials that exist in the library. None of them are currently exposed or accessible to the public. They are in tile that is primarily underneath old carpeting. And as you know, last year, as we went through discussions about the potential renovation of the first and lower level of the library, we were discussing the replacement of some carpeting here on the lower level, which invoked this conversation. And there was a line item in our strategic facility plan last fall that specifically called out some asbestos abatement. When that project was sunset, at least for the time being, we endeavored to continue with some of the aspects of that project. And that's what we're proposing this evening, is to proceed with the improvement of the northeast corner of the lower level, which we call the 900s room. And as you know, staff has been working over the course of the last year to try to appropriately align the nonfiction collections on the south side of the lower level of the library, and thus to vacate that 900s room in an effort to prepare it for some improvement, which includes replacing the carpeting in that space, as well as removing some of the tired furnishings that are in there and trying to repurpose that 3,000 square foot area. What we learned from our construction management team at Shales McNutt, that the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency requires a certain set of procedures that an agency would go through in a commercial building to abate asbestos. And they recommended that we pursue contacting Midwest Environmental Consulting for those services, recognizing the fit that we would be for their services. After engaging with them, they conducted a study, they evaluated our study that I referenced earlier from 2015-16 and studied the space, and they've given us a proposal for the abatement services. Essentially, the service that they provide is they are a consultant who is familiar with this industry, and they would create a design project for us, would present that project for public bid, estimating that the project is likely going to cost, as it shows in my report, the services themselves would probably be between $24,000 and $30,000 to complete the asbestos abatement. However, they have some administrative fees, and then per the code, they also have to contain daily air quality testing while completing the project. So the total cost for this project is estimated to be about $45,000 as an upper threshold, and that project would take approximately 8 to 10 days to complete. I've got a number of other details in here, and I'm sure we'll discuss some of these things, so I'll kind of abbreviate the rest of my report here. But Midwest Environmental Consulting would essentially oversee this entire process for us. They would get the project out to bid, they would evaluate all of the proposals, they would make a recommendation based upon who they think would be the best fit for us, and would align this project with our schedule so that it makes the most sense for the library. The good news for us is that this space on the northeast corner of the library is largely going to be out of the traffic pattern of a lot of our daily operations, so we're not going to require closing for this project. The only service that would likely be affected by this would be the operations of Books Down Under, the Friends Bookstore, and I've spoken about this with them. Their door to their bookstore is adjacent to this hallway that is kind of connecting to the 900s room and the carpeting that we're proposing to replace. So that kind of succinctly summarizes what's in the packet, and I will entertain your questions.
asbestos in the building, or would this completely remediate the building?
It,
That's my question too.
yeah, so it does not completely eliminate all the asbestos in the building, but this is the most immediate area that we're looking at. There are some mastic adhesives that are in some spaces that are above ceiling, that are underneath tile in the building. This is the area of the building that is the oldest and has never been renovated. So this is kind of the space that we need to start with first. But there are some other areas, but as I said earlier, there are no publicly accessible asbestos in this building currently.
And so if I remember correctly, when we did the tour, it was under some of those shelves, the older shelves, correct? So
That's
some of
right.
those shelves are coming out.
Yeah, so the real challenge that we have right here is that the 900s room shelving was not picked up and moved when the carpeting was installed. So what we're attempting to do essentially is to recarpet this space. The carpeting in there is very worn, it's over 40 years old, it's part of the whole refresh of that area. But because the carpeting was cut around all of the shelving, as we start to pull that away, we are exposing all of this tile. And if we just wanted to pick up the shelving and remove the shelving, well, that's one thing. But once the shelving is gone, there's these big holes in the floor where the carpeting has kind of been cut around it. So those are the challenges. And yes, you're correct, Trustee Cox. The asbestos-containing tile is immediately beneath that shelving and is visible there because it's under the carpet.
And those shelves are not necessarily going back in the same, right? Yeah.
The steel shelving is still serviceable and is used throughout the lower level of the library. It's of a piece. We would likely maintain that, and the idea is that we would store that. There's some wooden shelving in there that really doesn't meet the modern needs of the library. We've just been using it because it's all we've had, and we would likely move to demo all of that.
You know, we've had a back and forth, so I'm just going to bring up some of my questions.
Sure.
In regarding to the abatement, I looked at the strategic plan, and it was estimated at 15,000. Can you just explain a little bit to everybody why this is a lot higher than that?
Sure.
This is from the strategic plan from this September, for the big part of the big plan.
So the strategic facility plan.
Excuse me, yes.
Which is the report that was produced by Ingberg Anderson, Joe Huberty's report for last year when he did the space needs assessment. So it is correct. Joe had a line item in the budget there for, he had an allowance, is what he called it, for asbestos abatement. And that was specifically related to this area that we're discussing here. A number of Joe's estimates were under what we anticipated what they would be. So I will just say that at the outset. I think we all acknowledge that. One of the details that was not included in that line item, I believe, is that he probably included all of the quote-unquote consulting work to be a separate line item as administration in his report summary. So I think that he was assuming some of those details would be included in that. The contractor would have been responsible for all of the bidding for the special trades and special projects that were associated with the strategic facility plan. So that would account for some of the expense. He may not have been aware. He likely probably had not read verbatim this entire asbestos abatement report before he created that project for us. The scope of the project for the strategic facility plan was fairly substantial. It covered the entire first and lower level and had a number of nuances to it as well. Again, it wasn't actually an architectural set of drawings. It was merely a hypothetical scenario for how we would likely renovate the spaces. But he did include an allowance in there, and yes, it was less than what we were estimating here by about 10 to 25,000.
A couple comments. I do appreciate you having in there, having the staff as available, doing some of the work, the painting. I think that was great. What's kind of and one of the questions I asked was, in your packet talked about the carpet, I asked, can we enter into a contract now? Because with all the talk of tariffs and all that kind of stuff, would we be able to lock in a price to give you some comfort? And you can explain your answer too.
Yeah, so we've replaced carpeting a fair bit around the library here. So the concept again, let me kind of roll this back. I'll come back to the carpeting for 1 second. So what we're hopefully going to be approving this evening for this asbestos abatement project is to go out to bid on this project as soon as possible. Although I said earlier that we're likely not going to complete this project until September. And as I explained in my report, in this area in particular, public schools and schools in general have a lot of asbestos in them, and a lot of that work is done in the summer when the students are not in school. And it makes great sense, but it's a very competitive time for this type of work to be done, and there's a certain escalation to the cost. If we are able to complete this project outside of the high demand time for this type of industry and this work, we can save a substantial sum because it doesn't come at a premium. So we're specifically getting this project out as soon as we can to get on the books with these vendors for this project to be completed after school is back in session sometime in the fall, probably September. So the question comes of carpeting. If we're going out to bid soon here about the asbestos abatement, and we know that we're going to be recarpeting, and we know the area that we're doing, should we not be trying to order carpeting now in an effort to try to lock in some pricing? The challenge that comes with the carpeting selection is that we have to buy a certain quantity of it, and it cannot be installed right away. It would need to be stored. There's no place at the library for us to physically store the carpeting, so we would have to rely on a vendor to store that. But the vendors may not actually have a place to store their carpeting either. And so they would likely charge us for rent on the storage of those products that we would be purchasing, which might offset any cost savings that we might have by making those purchases today. Another consideration would be there might be some issues with quantity, and we want to make sure that the dye lot for the carpeting that we choose, we're moving towards carpet tile versus broadloom. We want to make sure that they're all going to be of the same color once they go and get installed. So ordering it all at the same time for the whole project together is operationally what makes the most sense to us at this time.
And I think you also indicated there's not as big a concern about ordering this, the cost fluctuation. I think you indicated you weren't as concerned about that.
I'm not as concerned based upon past projects that we've worked on, and to your point about tariffs and all, the materials that we're looking at are primarily domestic.
Great, thank you. And my last question is kind of one of the things with doing this, what's your long-term vision for this space? When you start this project, I think, since I won't be on the board, but other people kind of getting an idea of what you are thinking about for this and future special reserve projects.
Yeah. So what we know that this 3,000 square foot space that we're talking about on the lower level right now is not used to its highest potential. That was one of the key points that was pointed out by our architect last year. What we really are trying to do is to activate this space and make it more useful. But we also are recognizing trending around our building about the viability of certain collections and their utility. And while I'm not really going to commit to a specific plan with you all here tonight, the goal is to try to maximize every square foot of space in this building to its highest potential and align the things that our public wants and needs most where it is most convenient for them to find those resources. The collections that have been in the 900s room are now being, as I said, aligned on the south side of the building in a way that makes much more sense for wayfinding to have all of our nonfiction materials together. I think that space is still, without a renovation imminent, is still best suited for a collection and/or study spaces. The specific collections at this time, I'm not sure that I want to commit to stating specifically what we had in mind for that, but the idea overall has been we are looking at some of the key places on the first floor that we would like to try to make more viable and useful to the public. And one of the things that we're looking at in particular is the use of the multimedia collections in the room that we call the media room. If you look in the circulation report this month by item collection, you will note that the CD, audio, and DVD collections account for about 10% of the library's circulation, but they occupy one of the brightest and most beautiful spots in the building. So trying to find a better utilization for that room and that space and a more appropriate location for those collections before the library ultimately moves a different direction with that type of media is what we have in mind.
So it basically allows you, by getting that space ready, to consider shifting things around. Wouldn't have to necessarily be a big renovation further, but it could be just moving things around with minor costs to
Right.
make it more efficient using,
Right.
Great.
We liken that room to, those little flat puzzles that have one open square and you're kind of moving all the things around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 900s room is that open square for us right now.
Okay. Thank you, and appreciate your answers.
So the painting, the staff will do the painting, time and materials, is that on the clock?
Yes.
On the clock, gotcha. And is that included in the $60,000 to $70,000 overall project estimate?
Yes.
Good questions. Very good. Thank you. Big project, but
Yeah.
a chunk at a time. Anyone else? Any other questions? Well, I'd say, as you've outlined, is the time is right, and the pricing is only going to go up. So I'd like to, if there's no other questions, then thank you for excellent overview. And I'd like to entertain a motion then for the contract proposal for Midwest Environmental Consulting Services for the 2025 asbestos abatement project as presented. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to proceed with the contract from Midwest Environmental Consulting Services on the 2025 asbestos abatement project as presented.
Thank you. Trustee DiLorenzo, is there a second?
I second.
Trustee Cox? Thank you. All right. Thank you. You have a motion on the floor for the contract proposal from Midwest Environmental Consulting Services for the 2025 asbestos abatement project as presented. Secretary DiLorenzo, may we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Newland?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes.
Trustee Sen?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes, but I have a question. Do we do that after we do the yeses? Or was that before? Just one quick question.
Before, but sure.
Before, but go
I'll do it now.
Okay.
Is there a cap on the, will there be a cap is there a cap on the contract? Like, is there a dollar cap?
Do we need to formally put that
Like, do we
within?
say up to a certain 500?
Well, we're not going to know what it's going to cost until the bids are received. We have an estimate in the proposal.
But we can't actually approve that unless we know.
You're going to have to vote to approve the contract once it gets recommended to you all. So you're giving me the
Okay.
permission to proceed with the proposal project,
That's what I'm looking
but
for.
you're
Yes.
not endorsing the actual contract because we don't have a contract
That's,
Right.
with
okay.
the vendor.
Thank you, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Clarification?
Sorry about that.
Trustee Fisher?
Yes, thank you. Motion passed to proceed with the contract proposal from Midwest Environmental Consulting Services for the 2025 asbestos abatement project as presented. Thank you. Moving on, our director's report, your director's report, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this report is to summarize the library's activities for February 2025 to present, and I've prepared a few brief updates for you all from the library. We saw over 20,000 visitors in February, averaging about 735 users per day. We welcomed 107 new patrons in February. And with over 17,000 registered cardholders, over 85% of households in Wilmette have at least one library card, and over 2/3 of those library cards have been actively used in the last 6 months. That's statistically a pretty great metric, by the way. The library's physical circulation statistics continue to average over 1,800 items checked out each day, with over 51,000 items checked out this month. Our digital circulation continues to boom and accounts for 30% of our total circulation. In February, our overdrive circulation totaled nearly 20,000 checkouts, and those statistics are in Lauren's report. As far as big initiatives go, February saw the conclusion of our winter reading initiatives in youth services and the adult teen Wilmette Reads series. Youth services saw a 20% increase in children finishing their reading goals over the last year, and that's in Andrea's portion of the report. And adult services saw a 117% increase in participation in Wilmette Reads over last year. And the interest of Wilmette readers was captured by our 2 featured titles, Entangled Life and Ghost Music, as evidenced by the circulation of physical copies 350 times during the 10-week program. Interestingly, the division between the two was almost equal, but the true highlight was that the circulation was a 42% increase over the featured titles of the previous year. Gains in digital circulation were more modest, but the combination of the formats still resulted in a 13% gain over 24. Staff experimented with a range of new promotional approaches, and as a result have cultivated some new strategies that we aim to sustain going forward, including personalized endorsements of display items, promotion of personalized book recommendation services, and promotion of patron online review of books, all of which have led strong reading-oriented outcomes for our participants. For more detail, I encourage you to take a look at the Wilmette Read supplement that Kathleen Blair has provided to this month's report. You may have attended the grand finale event for Wilmette Reads, which concluded with a reception featuring a fungi-inspired set of treats and a concert with the Chris White Jazz Trio. Librarians Rachel Garcia, Rachel Rothy, and Kathleen Blair encouraged attendees to participate in the final days of Wilmette Reads, as this was right before the end of the program, and we're delighted to see the enthusiasm from those who had already completed the program. Many of the patrons have been showing their enamel pins, buttons, library super user totes, and WPL branded winter hats. And a lot of folks have come by to share with us how much they've enjoyed the programming series this year. The Friends also shared that anecdote with me as well at their board meeting last week. And as always, I want to thank the Friends, because without them, we would not have been able to have these programs. So their continued support of Wilmette Reads and the Winter Reading Club make all those experiences possible. The Friends were also responsible for sponsoring the return of the Shakespeare Project of Chicago. We had a staging of A Winter's Tale this past month with 91 patrons filling this room, and their events continue to be popular with our patrons and followers. A summary of all of the programs and events in attendance that we had this past month are appended to my report as part of the statistics. There is an item that I did want to share with you that was not part of this month's report, and that detail is that Wilmette Public Library has just been named Advocate of the Year by the North Suburban Special Recreation Association and SSRA, and we will be celebrated at their annual Shining Stars Award and Recreation Banquet this spring. This award recognizes the library's profound impact on the NSSRA community, specifically staff's efforts to create safe, inclusive spaces and programs for participants, and demonstrating our values with compassion. I'm sure you've seen record of our NSSRA visits in my past reports. These are truly library-wide programs, including staff from shelving, adult, teen, youth, circulation, digital maker services, and the safety team. We're especially proud to recognize the specific coordinating and advocacy efforts of community engagement librarian Sarah Jo Zaharako, who has been a very strong advocate for us and is really at the core of this programming. So we're very proud for this award, and I will let you know more about that after the award ceremony in May. Looking ahead, there's a couple other items I wanted to share with you. We've got a couple big projects in the work for this spring, including our April-May newsletter, which should be in homes later this month. We're also launching our new Let's Learn Together series, which is focusing on neurodiversity, and we'll have a kickoff event for that at the end of April. And we are also launching an exciting revamp of our library app, which was one of our strategic plan goals for the year, which will be available on your phones and tablets here in the coming weeks. And if you don't already have the app, you'll definitely want to take advantage of this tool now, as it's better and faster than ever. And it's a great way to store your library card and manage your account and holds, register for programs and events, and even book study rooms and more. Staff have been hard at work improving our internal operations as well, and having implemented our new computing systems and participated in comprehensive software training, we're turning our attention to another strategic plan goal of improving our communications by enhancing our team's environment and developing and launching our new intranet. We plan to launch the new intranet portal on Staff Day, which our dedicated committee of June, Rebecca, Ethan, Krista, Emma, and Andrea have been planning for us all. And just a reminder that the library will be closed on Friday, April 4th, and we'll resume our regular hours the following day after Staff Day. And I guess the last thing I wanted to share with you is a reminder that on April 1st, the consolidated election is happening for the local offices, and Wilmette's early voting is open at Centennial Ice Rink from 9 to 5, Monday through Saturday, and 10 to 4 on Sundays, now through March 31st. Wilmette voters can vote at any convenience or own location in Cook County. And then for more information about the local candidates, I encourage you all to visit the League of Women Voters Wilmette website, complete with a voter guide profiling all of the candidates running for local office. That concludes my report. Do you have any questions for me about library operations for February?
I have a
question about the app. Where and when do we get it? How do we access it? Sounds good.
Do you already have the app?
I had an old version of the app that I had to delete, but
Okay.
just bring it back.
So if you go to the Apple Store or the Play Store on your Android device and search for Wilmette Library, you will see the app there. The new update will be pushed out to all current users or downloaders of the app. And if you grab it today, you'll still get the update when it's pushed out here in the next couple weeks or so. But it will be much faster than it is today. We're already kind of demoing the new version, and we're really giddy about it. It's pretty cool.
I love the app because I love it for I keep my library card right there. So it's very
That's
handy. So I look forward to the
'Cause you always have
updated
your phone.
version. Yeah, I always have my phone. Great. Kudos to staff for moving that forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else for Director Austin? Any other questions? And I guess I want to reiterate that we thank the Friends of the Wilmette Public Library. I'm sorry I missed the Shakespeare project, but we'll watch the announcements that come around in many ways and forms, and look forward to that. It's always a great attendance.
Every quarter going forward now, we'll be able to do it.
Great.
Yep, they took a
We're happy.
pause during COVID, but we're thrilled to have them back.
Wonderful. Very creative. Thank you. All right, moving on to our committee reports. Thank you very much. ILA and Rails, Trustee Senate? Anything, or
Yes.
Director Austin?
Yes, for Rails. So I did attend the February 28th meeting of Rails in person. As a reminder, Rails facilitates our interlibrary loan. It also helps all the libraries that are members negotiate discounts and has a lot of resources and training to it. One of the things that Rails is keeping an eye on is one of the recent executive orders from the federal government, which is seeking to reduce the size and spending of federal agencies, has included the Institute of Museum and Library Services, also known as IMLS. 10% of the Illinois State Library budget does come from IMLS, and so it's not clear now how that's going to affect the budget, but there could be a little trickle down. In the meantime, Rails is just keeping an eye on this, and there is a state conference coming up where I think they'll be discussing that. The only other kind of main thing that happened at the meeting is that Explore More Illinois is expanding. There was actually somebody there giving a presentation on it. Explore More is, if you're not familiar with it, is an opportunity to visit your local public library, such as the Wilmette Public Library, and be able to get passes for museums and local attractions. One of the part of the expansion is they want to start including park districts, because libraries and park districts work so much together. So to the extent that there are park districts in Illinois that would like to be able to provide free passes or discounted passes to people through the library, that will be a good opportunity. And they've also added some professional sports teams. Like there's a professional rugby league, I guess, that has some passes that are currently available. So the library can suggest an attraction. So I believe that if patrons have an idea, they can ask the library to suggest it on their behalf. That's mostly what happened.
Thank you, Trustee Senate. Now, would you also identify your new role with Rails,
Oh,
please?
yes. I am on the board of directors of Rails. Rails is comprised of the member libraries are public libraries, academic libraries, school libraries, and special libraries. And so there are 8 positions on the Rails board that are for public library trustees. So I'm actually filling in for somebody who left, and so the nominating committee actually asked me, and I have already said that I do intend to run for the next cycle.
Great. Congratulations. We're happy to have you in that capacity. Wonderful. And then the Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee update. Trustee Senate and I attended the most recent meeting. And Trustee Senate, if you will, give us a report, please.
Okay, so the Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee just finished last month, or 2 months ago, I guess, the last area of study, which resulted in some mental health initiatives. You should be hearing more about that through the village communications. For the next cycle, the meeting was on February 27th. Most of the people who were there as representatives of their government unit were from the previous year. And so after the election, some of the participants could change. But the key part of the discussion was to decide upon the topic of to promote over the next year or two. And the consensus was it will be about civility. I don't have a lot more detail than that. I think the next meeting isn't until May, and everybody's kind of been sent back to think about it. But the idea came from not just civil discourse, but the way that people just treat each other generally. And some of this has come up at various board meetings for other government units, not at the library so far, in terms of the way people just speak to each other and treat each other in the community. And the idea also was, after having two topics that did cost money and involved a lot of action on the part of the individual units, that this is an opportunity to do something that is just a little more, it won't require a lot of funds and action on behalf of the various units, but to address something that several people seem to believe is necessary and desired in our community. So the next meeting will not be until May, and I intend to attend, and we'll report back on that the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Just a reminder, the first project of the group was sustainability, and that's been very fruitful. And the next one was mental health. And we want to thank Trustee Nealon and Trustee Summer for participating and bringing so much to the committee for that. Thank you. So thanks so much. Great, thank you for your report. The suggestion folder is being distributed, and pass that around. Any new business?
I actually just have one item. I've been the liaison for the Friends, and it's been wonderful, but since I'm coming off the board, going forward, and perhaps after the next election, or before, another board member would be, should go start attending the meetings. It's very nice. They're a lovely group of women, people.
People, right,
They're a
right.
group of people, so.
Well, thank you. We'll
Yeah.
we'll
So there's a
discuss
meeting
that. I
April
appreciate
9th. Yeah, just
okay.
looking ahead. I can go to the April 9th, but looking ahead.
Excellent.
So,
Thanks
someone
for
else.
reminding us
Yep.
on that. Good. Trustee O'Keefe and myself are past presidents of and active members of Friends of the Wilmette Public Library. So, but we are open to new faces. Great. Well, the time is now 7:14, and as we do every year at this meeting, we're moving into a closed meeting. And is anyone like to entertain the motion that the board will now go into a closed meeting to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees in compliance with 5 ILCS 120/2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. And we take a motion on this, or we just vote?
Did you just motion that?
I did, yes. Okay, thank you very much. So Trustee Fishman has presented this motion. Thank you. And is there a second?
I second. I
Okay.
can second, yeah.
Okay, Trustee Summer, thank you very much. All right. Trustee Di Lorenzo, may we have a motion, or a vote, excuse me. Thank you, a roll call vote.
Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes?
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes?
Trustee Fishman?
Yes, thank you. Motion passed.
All right, the
Go.
time is now 7:15.
7:15. We'll make note of that. Thank you. And now we will move into our closed meeting. We will convene in a closed meeting to discuss, as we have identified, and we will now move, this meeting is now closed, and we will reconvene when there's no time set, but the meeting then will be reopened and closed again. So we will
All
move
right,
into the
so
small conference
We'll
room.
go next door.
Good evening. We are now going to reconvene our open meeting that we are here at the Board of Libraries, Board of Library Trustees regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, and the time is now, give me a time, 8:58. Thank you. May we have a roll call that reconvenes the meeting?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, please.
Trustee Cox? Here. Trustee DiLorenzo? Here. Trustee Nealon?
Here?
Trustee O'Keefe?
Here.
Trustee Senate?
Here.
Trustee Summer?
Here.
Trustee Fishman?
Here. Thank you. Reconvening for our open meeting. We now will, in compliance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, the Board of Trustees in the closed meeting build consensus to recommend that we reviewed the past year plus for Director Austin, and we feel that he's done an excellent job over the course of this past year plus, that we do have some suggestions that will be shared with him. We understand, we do know that there have been challenges in the running of the library and our budgeting and so forth, but we do recommend that we have an increase in Director Austin's salary, that to recommend that he now be at 4% increase, retroactive to July 1st, 2024, which leads him to a salary of $161,720.
The time is now 9 p.m. and the Wilmette Public Library is closed. Thank you and good night.
May we have a motion to move to accept the recommendations of the Board of Trustees? Is there a motion, please?
I move recommendation of the
It's
Board of
accept the
Trustees.
recommendation of the Board of
I
Trustees.
move to accept the recommendation of the Board of Trustees.
All right, is there a second, please?
A second.
Okay. The motion has to accept the recommendation of the Board of Trustees, moved by Trustee Summer and seconded by Trustee DiLorenzo. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Cox?
Yes.
Trustee DiLorenzo, yes. Trustee Nealon?
Yes.
Trustee O'Keefe?
Yes.
Trustee Senate?
Yes.
Trustee Summer?
Yes.
Trustee Fishman?
Yes. Motion passed. And now I move to adjourn the meeting. May we have a voice vote, please? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It is now 9:01.
01.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.